215, Hear Me When I Call. Hear me when I call, O God, my righteousness. Unto thee I come in weakness and distress. Hold my trembling hand, lest helpless I shall fall. Oh, hear me, Lord, hear me. Oh, hear me when I call. Hear my cry, O God. Attend unto my prayer. More and more I need thy mercy and thy care. Clouds of doubt arise, and faith grows weak and small. Oh, hear me, Lord, hear me. Oh, hear me when I call. Hear my voice, O God, and cleanse my soul within. Mercy do I need for all my doubts and sin. Only in thy grace I trust, my all in all. Oh, hear me, Lord, hear me. Oh, hear me when I call. Hear my prayer, O God. I need thy cleansing power. Let me feel thee near each moment of each hour. Hold my trembling hand, lest helpless I should fall. Oh, hear me, Lord, hear me. Oh, hear me when I call.
If you would, before we say the prayer, would you turn with me to John, the 14th chapter? I just want to let us understand our prayers unto God, what Jesus said about it in John, the 14th chapter, and verses 13 through 14. He says, "And whatever you ask in my name, that I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. And if you ask anything in my name, I will do it." So now if we have courage to ask God in Jesus' name, even about the growth of the church and our expounding out, rely on Him that He'll do it. So let's pray to God. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time. We've been able to come out to worship you in spirit and truth, all manners of worship you've given us to do, to obey you, Father. And please help us here in Greenville that you allow us to grow and lost souls to be brought under your church and kingdom, to be saved everlasting. And Father, be with all our sick. Be with Phyllis, our sister. She suffers, Father. And help her, Father. And help her to know that you're there with her all the way. Father, we ask you to be with our sister Patsy as she's coming up to surgery here in a few days. nurses, for them to all have the proper energy and strength that day, and the best things be done that you taught them how they can do. You have a mercy on us, the things that can help us through the doctors and medical care, Father. Please help us, Father. And Father, we ask you to be with Jason as he travels again to Louisiana, gets back home, and everything will be safe and all right. And Father, we ask you to be with Billy and Stephanie, even in their long bereavements of LMA being gone, Lord. And Father, help them and help Billy in his health and help healing, Father. And be with us all, that we look unto you for guidance and not what we think, but what you say through your word. Help us be diligent teaching. Be with Christopher as he brings a lesson tonight, that we might be happy and uplifted, strengthened, how we need to go in this life. Forgive us of our wrongs, Lord, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
I stand amazed. I stand amazed in the presence of Jesus the Nazarene, and wonder how he could love me, a sinner condemned unclean. How marvelous, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. For me it was in the garden, he prayed not my will but thine. He had no tears for his own grief, but sweat drops of blood for mine. How marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. In pity angels beheld him, and came from the world of light to comfort him in the sorrows he bore for my soul that night. How marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. He took my sins and my sorrows, he made them his very own. He bore the burden to Calvary, and suffered and died alone. How marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. When with the ransom in glory his face I at last shall see, 'twill be my joy through the ages to sing of his love for me. How marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. Before the scripture reading and the lesson, we'll sing song number 200, Hallelujah, Praise Jehovah. Hallelujah.
in Psalms, the 36th chapter, verses 7 through 9. That's Psalms 36, verses 7 through 9. How precious is your loving kindness, O God. Therefore, the children of men put their trust under the shadow of your wings. They are abundantly satisfied with the fullness of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your pleasures. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light we see light. In your light we see light.
Good evening. What a blessing it is that we have to be able to meet together on yet another Lord's Day evening. To sing song, to have had the ability to sing songs of praise, to worship Him in spirit and in truth. Tonight's topic is moral God. Moral God, taken from a study in the 36th Psalm. The idea of morality. People want us to believe things like the idea that truth is relative to the individual. A statement like this means that depending on the perspective that you have, the truth you understand may be different from the truth someone else sees. Kind of like the idea of two eyewitnesses will not fully see the same thing. Whereas one will be filling in gaps of what they didn't see to try to tell a full story, the other will tell you what they thought they saw. But even though they both seem to have seen the same thing, seemingly the two will not say the exact same thing about how the incident took place. And people like to point to that experiential frame of mind to say, well, truth is relative. Truth is relative. The problem in making a statement like that is that you are saying that there is no absolute when it comes to what is truth. The truth, then, is different from person to person. And then we get into the topic of morality from there. If truth is relative, then we have to then argue and concede the fact that morality is also relative. So something I have decided in my mind to be right must be right, because it is my mind that I answer to in order to justify what is right and wrong. Now, this is a dangerous slope to get on, because you have many people in the world that say murder and theft are evil. But I will ask you, if I have reasoned in my mind that murdering someone for the sake of taking their goods, because I feel that they need it more than they do, how can someone else tell me that this action is wrong? Why do we have so many people locked away in our justice system for crimes against supposed society if truth and morality are subject to the individual? There has to be a standard, right, for which we govern our society, and we call that the law of morals. The law of morals. And everyone who you've ever talked to will agree that the things which Hitler did to all those people, the way he murdered them, was wrong. And I have yet to hear anyone who really argues against that idea. But I ask, why was it wrong? He had reasoned within himself a way to raise the economic stature of the nation which he was living in within the confines of the treaties Germany had signed in the loss of the First World War. And under Hitler, Germany's economic stature rose tremendously. So, technically, he was right. And therefore, if truth and morality are relative to the person, one would have to argue that Hitler was then justified in his actions. Now, that is not how I truly contend. And anyone you make this argument with will contend that Hitler was not correct in his line of thinking. No one believes that. But in order to say this, we have to agree, firstly, that there is an absolute in truth, and secondly, that there is an absolute in morality that makes it true. And that is what we're going to discuss today. We're going to, where does this absolute truth and morality come from? And to do so, we will be studying from the 36th Psalm, if you haven't already turned your Bibles there. Here the writer David talks in detail comparing the mind of the unrighteous man to the mind of God and telling us of both outcomes. And so I want us to read through this together as we do, we're going to discuss some of the finer points in each section as we walk through it. We're going to look at it, and I know you're going to be surprised in 3 sections. The morality of man, the morality of God, and then the result of whether you follow God or man for your moral standard. My hope in bringing a lesson such as this is to sharpen the minds of those who are studied in the Word and to give us yet another tool in which we can use to take down false arguments which do not hold up within the standard of truth which we know. The ability to say we know that there is true morality, and that comes from God, and there is no relative reality, one person to the next, in the question of truth and morality. Truth and morality. They are not subject to the way I feel. I once heard someone say, the truth doesn't care about your feelings. That's a reality that we have to deal with. But we're going to begin, as we look at this, we're going to begin in the first 4 verses by looking at the morality of man. David begins by saying, transgression speaks to the ungodly within his heart. There is no fear of God before his eyes, for it flatters him in his own eyes concerning the discovery of his iniquity and the hatred of it. The words of his mouth are wickedness and deceit. He has ceased to be wise and to do good. He plans wickedness upon his bed. He sets himself on a path that is not good. He does not despise evil. In this portion of the psalm, David, he is speaking of the tendency of the nature of man without God. He says transgression speaks to the ungodly within his heart. At the root of the man is transgression without God. Man on his own has evil thoughts within him that do not lead to good actions. He says man will seek that which flatters himself in his own eyes concerning the discovery of his iniquity and the hatred of it. And this portion, to me, speaks directly to the argument of those who say truth is relative. They speak things which flatter their own hearts. That's what they are really arguing for when you boil it all down. I don't want you to tell me what is right and wrong. I want to live a life where I don't have to feel guilty and shame for the things that I do that are against a God of any kind. Man wishes to serve themselves even to their own detriment. I can remember I was sitting on the back porch with Pole, and he and I were talking. We were watching the cows, and we were talking about certain things about life, certain things about the Bible. I think if you know him, you know that you don't really sit down and have a conversation with him without talking about life in the Bible. The two topics that are nearest and dearest to his heart. And we were sitting there, and he shared a wealth of wisdom to me that he had obtained over the years, watching what we call the human condition, right? He said of people, we treat the animals on the farm and our pets much better than we do ourselves. The animals that are on the farm and our pets, we treat them much better than we do ourselves. And I thought about that statement for a long time, but he's right. He's right. How many people are out there allowing their animals to eat things which are not healthy for them, which don't benefit them or make them gain weight or whatever it might be? I dare say a scarce few. How about hard drugs? Have you ever seen a cow strung out on drugs? Or a dog with meth mouth? Maybe an alcoholic cat? You may see silly things like this in movies where they try to play the idea for laughs. Because there are so many laws and protections against such things that if there were ever wind of someone drugging something or doing something like this, they would go to prison. They would go to prison. Why? Because even though people do it to themselves and mess themselves up, we know that it's wrong. And we protect the things which cannot protect themselves from our, and pardon my own wording here, stupidity. We flatter ourselves with our own wickedness, and we do not despise evil. That, according to David, and from what I've seen in humanity, is the truth, is the morality of mankind absent of God. To say otherwise would be to deceive our own minds. I've never heard of the person who on their deathbed said, I wish I was drunk more. Or I wish I had done more drugs. Or most people, when they reach that point in their life, they talk about the things that they regret doing. Because they're dying. And the realization hits them that the things that they were doing was killing themselves. Indulging in the pleasures of life, they were killing themselves. And they're ashamed of it. And they're ashamed of it. And yet this is the morality of man. If there was no absolute morality, this is where we would be. There wouldn't be any true morals. Just what we felt good to do. We would not despise evil because evil would feel good to us. The biggest lie anybody could tell you is that sin is not pleasurable. It is. And the mind would seek that which makes it feel good over anything else. So there must be some other standard of morality. Because we're not given up to a depraved mind. And that's where the morality of God comes in, verses 5 to 9 here. He says, your loving kindness, O Lord, extends to the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the skies. Your righteousness is like the mountains of God. Your judgments are like a great deep. O Lord, you preserve man and beast. How precious is your loving kindness. O God, and the children of men take refuge in the shadow of your wings. They drink their fill of the abundance of your house, and you give them to drink of the river of your delight. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light we see light. When we get into the topic of the morality of God here, it is important to notice the fact that twice David talks about God's loving kindness. And when we break that word up here, to love or show affection to, compassion on, a word which in today's society I believe we take for granted, we really make a mockery of, the idea of loving someone selflessly, serving someone else's needs, as it is written according to Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And the word kindness, another word which I think we downplay in today's society, means living humbly towards others. Living humbly towards others. Placing their needs as important as your own. Right? That golden rule. Love your neighbor as yourself. We talked about that at great depth this morning. It doesn't mean belittling the things that you need. It means placing all needs as equal, that you may humbly serve those around you, knowing that you share the same Creator. So God's morality results in loving kindness, having compassion for people around you. God's morality is righteous, meaning then that there is a standard for how we live our lives. And God meets that standard. He sets that standard. God gives refuge. He provides to their needs. He gives light. In other words, to all those good things that we talk about and make such big arguments for, all the ways in which we justify one thing is wrong and the other right, that comes from the morality of God, who again sets the standard. God is the one who placed that sense of right and wrong within us when He created us. We did not create that on our own, as some might suggest. There are those out there that suggest that those who follow after God are just following after this thing which we invented of our own accord. That we invented to set hard rules on people, to make hard judgments on people. Consider that for a moment, though. Man creating rules which make life harder for themselves. When, in the existence of man, has man ever made something for the purpose of making their life harder? We tend to go from difficult to making things that make things easy, right? That's the way of life. We find a task that is difficult to do, and we find a way to make it easier to do. That is why for so many years you had people who, even if they didn't serve the true God, they served a form of God. Why? Because for so many years it wasn't an argument of whether or not there was a God. That was the standard of belief. God was the standard of belief. It was the standard to believe in and the evidence of a true God. The argument was for which one is the true God. God, who deserves all their sense, who gives them all their senses of right and wrong, and stands opposed to all who do evil things. You think about that. All of the gods, that the so-called gods that were created by mankind, and they were created for the purpose of accepting whatever it is, the lifestyle that these people wanted to live. They did not create a God that suspended or made strict a life that they were going to live. They invented gods that made it easier to live it the way they wanted to. There has to be one true and living God. And that true and living God isn't going to set things up so that it's easy on us, necessarily. He's going to tell us how to live our lives right. How to live our lives right. So that we're doing what's best for ourselves and for those around us. You look at all the laws and all the things that the Jews followed in the early portions of the Old Testament. All of those ordinances that you read in Deuteronomy and Leviticus. You read all these rules and laws, and every single one of them, when scientists look at it today, will say, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense for them to be that way and for that to be a rule, because it made cleanliness, it made hygiene, it elongated life because you didn't have so many diseases. Because of the way they were living, because they were following the ordinances of God. Morality comes from righteousness. And the one who sets that righteousness and that standard is the one who created all life and knows what it takes to sustain it. It is not subject to some person's own mind. In order to see that, though, we need to understand the results following God or following man. And we get those results when we close out the chapter here, verses 10 to 12. Verses 10 to 12. It says, "Oh, continue your loving kindness to those who know you, and your righteousness to the upright in heart. Let not the food of pride come upon me, and let not the hand of the wicked drive me away. The doers of iniquity have fallen. They have been thrust down and cannot rise." Thrust down and cannot rise. To follow God's morality and live the way God has called us is to accept His loving kindness. To rest assured that the wicked will not drive you away or take you away from the blessings of God in your life. To know that God is the example that you are following puts you squarely within the righteousness, which is a place that we all need to be. All good things, if you read, come from following after God's morality: refuge, care, happiness, a fulfilled life, and most importantly, a home with God in heaven. On the other hand, we have to realize those who are doers of iniquity, those who follow the morality of man, that relative morality, right, will fall and will not rise again. When they die, there will not be that life, that heavenly life after. Only death and punishment. despise it. So you see, the choice today is ours. Will we follow after that which is good and morally upright, the standard of righteous living, that life that God desires of us to live? Or will we follow the world and fall and never rise again, always feeling shame for the actions we have taken? The choice is ours today. And in the words of Joshua, right, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. The Lord is the one who offers that comfort. The Lord is the one who offers satisfaction. Because we know that while we will never be satisfied with the pleasures of this earth, there is nothing more abundantly clear than the paradise that awaits, that heavenly home for those who are in Christ Jesus. So I ask you tonight, are you in Christ Jesus? Have you been baptized for the forgiveness of sins, having those sins washed free from your life, to walk in newness of life, a creature not stained with sin, but living with heavenly purpose? You're here and you've been baptized, but you need the prayers of the church. Let us pray. Let us work together. Let us do whatever we can to serve one another, to make sure that we are all working together to get to that heavenly home. Because that is our goal at the end of this life. To enjoy the pleasures and love in the life to come. If you are here and you're subject to the Lord's invitation, please come as we stand and as we sing. All things are ready. Come to the feast. Come, for the table now is spread. Ye famishing, ye weary, come, and thou shalt be richly fed. Hear the invitation.
declare the truth in all manners you've given us to do. Help us not to sin against you, Father, but do your will. We ask your protection on us, Father, this week as we go about, that you protect us, all of us, where we go and how we conduct ourselves. Help us to be a good servant of yours in your vineyard here, to reach out to the lost, that they can see what a wonderful thing you have for us of everlasting life, our sins to be forgiven, be in heaven bound. Be with us with that work, Father. And please be with our bereaving ones, Father. Be with Billy and Stephanie, and be with Stephanie's friend Karen and the loss of Karen from that family. Help them to look to you for strength and guidance, Father. And help us not to wrongly divide your word of truth as we teach others, Father. And keep us all safe. Forgive us of our wrongs